position.
Speed Weeks on Speed continues. Tonight from the Daytona International Speedway, it's the NASCAR Nextel Cup Series final practice for the Budweiser Shootout. Cars rolling off of pit road onto the track for the final practice session leading up to Saturday night's Budweiser Shootout. Hi, everybody. Bill Weber along with Wally Dallenbach and Benny Parsons. Glad to be back with you as we get ready for the racing action here at Daytona. And BP, I know you're excited to be back.
I can't wait. Been coming to Daytona since the late 60s to watch all these cars go around the circles. And it's as exciting now as it was in the 60s. Who's going to win the shootout? How's practice going tonight? All these things we're trying to just watch and figure out what's going to happen tomorrow.
Cars had one practice session earlier today. What are you looking for in this one, Wally?
Well, Billy, nobody knows more about sucking up than you do, but that's what these guys are going to be working on here today. The cars are handling pretty good, but it's all about if you can get up to that guy and try to make the pass. That's what they're going to be working on.
Decided to set the tone for the season early.
I think I did.
Yeah, you did a very good job. We're looking forward to it, too. Let's go down and take a look at the cars on the track. 21 cars in line for the Budweiser Shootout. Tomorrow, Ken Schrader won the pole in the draw last night. Dale Jarrett leading the pack. This is through turn 2 and on to the backstretch. The sunset here about 6:10 Eastern time, about 23 minutes ago, and so this track condition is much more closer to what they're going to see tomorrow night in the shootout. This was the first practice session, Benny.
Brian Vickers in the 25 car with Dale Earnhardt Jr., the 8 right behind him, loses an engine. Engine expires going down in turn 1, but luckily no oil or anything on the racetrack to cause any kind of problems other than for Brian Vickers.
And Junior was lucky because if there would have been a lot of oil coming out, he was in a bad spot, but he did a good job. Everybody kept their head. They just waited till it, calmed down and moved on.
Vickers is out on the track. Let's get an update from Alan Bestwick.
Yeah, Bill, this car was not tested during the January test sessions here at Daytona because of the way the testing rules are this year. Teams trying to test their Talladega car here as well as their Daytona cars. This is the car they ran last year. They changed the engine in it, got only 7 laps of practice in that first run before the problem. Basically, they're going to come out here now and make a short run. Crew Chief Lance McGrew telling me they'll come in, look the car over, things they would have done in that first practice session, checking for fender rubs. Then they'll put fresh tires on, fuel it up, and go back out to make a longer run to check the tire wear and handling.
The concern that I had in the first practice session, it looked like the passing was so very difficult. You talked about sucking up. Well, sucking up is one thing, but once you get to them, can you pull out and go by? I didn't see a lot of that going on.
And one thing I saw in that practice, BP, was like Earnhardt. Earnhardt could get a really good run on somebody, pull out, but there was nobody good enough to stay with Earnhardt to help Earnhardt make the pass. So that's another thing. You got some really strong cars, but they're going to need help.
This is a restrictor plate race. They will run in big packs, but also looking at handling on these cars, Benny.
Oh, yes. Daytona is a handling racetrack. Talladega, about anything will work, but here you've got to have the proper springs and shocks to get to the corner.
Let's go downstairs to Matt Yoakum.
And, Bill, when you talk about 3 wide during practice, Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus, they wanted to put that 48 car out there in all kinds of situations, in front, at the back of a pack, alongside, just to see how that car will handle, how it will respond with sucking up, like Wally mentioned earlier, and as well during this final practice session, Chad says expect to see the 48 car to run about 20 laps. They were very pleased with what they saw in the first session. They're very excited about what they'll see tomorrow night. In fact, AB, the air temperature is 62 degrees. Last year for the Bud Shootout, it was 52, so we are seeing similar conditions. AB?
And, Matt, a little bit different strategy for this practice session for Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 8 car. He liked the way his car was driving in the first practice session, so crew chief Tony Uri Jr. told me that they're going to experiment with things for the Daytona 500 in this practice session. Look for the 8 car to come into the garage 2 or 3 times during this practice and raise the hood to work on some different engine combinations for the big race that comes up 1 week from Sunday.
And see right there, BP, how that 8 car shot out, and he got a really, really good run, but the 38 couldn't stay with him to help make the pass. Now he gets a little bit of help from the 88, Dale Jarrett.
And in that first practice session, I saw Junior make all of his passes on the outside. That's kind of unusual. These cars passed on the outside, but Junior, every time he had the opportunity, he dove out and made the pass.
All 21 cars out on the track. Final practice for the Budweiser Shootout here at Daytona. Dale Jarrett out front. Speed Weeks on Speed continues. Speed's coverage of Bud Shootout practice is brought to you by Zales. Be brilliant. Shop the Valentine's sale at Zales. Cars on the track here at Daytona. 21 cars out there. But look at what happened just a moment ago.
You see the 5-car, Kyle Busch, right on the back of 48, Jimmy Johnson. I don't think Kyle sees that 88-car, Dale Jarrett, slowing down. He was bump drafting the 48-car, Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson had to go to the apron to avoid running over Dale Jarrett.
There we see another shot of the 88 car backing up, and it looks like that 88 was trying to get to the rear of the pack for some reason, and Johnson was very, very lucky.
Now look at this shot. You can't see too far ahead of you. Tony Stewart was right on the back of the 5-car, and you couldn't see Jarrett that was 3 cars up. When you're that close to a guy in front of you, you can't see 2 cars in front.
That's an excellent point, too, because yesterday we were talking to a number of drivers during media day, and almost to a man they talked about how difficult it is nowadays at Daytona and Talladega when these cars are all bunched together to see through the car in front of you, basically because of all the safety equipment.
Exactly. You can't see through anything. You've got so much seat and head restraints, and the mirrors now on everything just blocks that windshield. So when you're behind a guy, you could hardly see him put his hand up now if he's going to try to give you a signal.
Plus the rear spoiler is 6.5 inches high. That's another something that's blocking the visibility, trying to see through the car in front of you.
A couple of guys have hit pit road.
Whoa! Man, it looked like the 25 car was real loose right there.
It looked like in the earlier practice a number of cars had some handling issues as well.
Casey Kane did not look very good to me in that last practice. Now, he may say his car's great, but it sure looked like it was scary driving it.
A lot of different colors, different paint schemes, new season, and of course a special race here Saturday night, the Budweiser Shootout. Let's take a look at the 25 car of Brian Vickers.
Watch 25 down, right down there on the bottom. Can't really, yeah, right there. He hits that bump, but it did loosen the car up.
And he can't go up the racetrack because his spoiler is telling you you're going to be 3 wide off the corner. And that's an uncomfortable situation to be loose off the corner and not be able to go up the racetrack.
You got to get out of the throttle, and when you get out of the throttle here, you get past. He's lost a couple positions. Just that little bit cost him a lot of spots.
Casey Kane and Elliott Sadler are on pit road. Earnhardt Jr. in the 8. Michael Waltrip in that 55 car. Speed's coverage from Daytona will continue. Speed Weeks on Speed continues, and right after our coverage of final practice for the Budweiser Shootout, NASCAR Live. John Roberts will be right in that chair. John Kenny and the gang, NASCAR Live coming up on Speed. Down in the garage doing their homework, getting ready for NASCAR Live. Dale Earnhardt Jr. out front, and we are still watching to see if you can pass the leader. It's an aerodynamic thing, not a desire thing.
Exactly. No one has been able to so far, Bill. I haven't seen anyone so far be able to pass the leader. Now then, if Mark Martin were to pull off and the 55 car have a run on the inside with some help behind him, he might be able to do something, but
you see Jimmy Johnson in the 48 car still out on the track after that close call.
But Junior's car did look like it was the strongest car.
Oh,
no
yes.
matter where he was in the field in the first practice, it looks like he's the strongest car here.
Imagine that.
And this is, Tony Eury Jr. told me this 8 car is a brand new car. This is not his 500 car that he was so pleased with in practice here.
They're pretty excited down there today, weren't they, about this car?
Yeah.
Alan, what are you working on?
About half the garage, Bill, but in this particular report, how about Joe Nemechek in the 01? This is another team with a brand new untested car out on the racetrack here for the Budweiser Shootout. Between the first and second practice sessions, 2 front end changes, changed the rear gear, and changed the cowling. You talked about those 2 words that you use to describe a car trying to gain quickly on the one in front of it.
Suck it up.
Yeah, those words. Yeah. That's what they're trying to work on.
And Alan, you can see the Mark Martin car, the number 6, working on the inside. He was in the middle down in 1 and 2. Now Mark came on the radio telling Pat Trice, I just cannot keep up with him. I can't push the car in front of me at all. We are really going to have to work on that. You can see the AAA on the hood, the colors for the Budweiser Shootout tomorrow night as Mark begins his final Nextel Cup season.
Wow, what a run McMurray and that 26 car got on Mark Martin, able to make the pass.
Jamie McMurray in that 26, a Ford Fusion. Ford's running the Fusion this year. McMurray coming over to join the Roush stable in 2006.
Oh, those cars looked unstable on that bump over there.
Oh, they do.
Turn 2.
This is down the backstretch. Carl Edwards in the 99. Mark Martin in the 6. Jeff Gordon in the 24.
You know, BP, a lot of times you see these cars running really, really close down the straightaways. And when I used to do this, it seemed like sometimes if you got close to a guy, whatever the air was being pushed off their windshield along the side of their car sometimes helped get the air in the cowling. And that's why you'll see a lot of these guys sometimes run real close. It's not only helping breaking the air on their car, but I think they're trying to steal some air off the other car that's being pushed. Now, you don't want to do that in the corners. You want to give a guy as much room in the corners as possible, because if you lean on a guy, if you're on the outside and you go in the corner and you're right on top of that guy side by side going through the corner, good chance you're going to take the air off his spoiler. He's going to get loose and wreck you too.
Happy birthday, Sponge. Jeff Randolph, birthday today.
Dale Earnhardt Jr., Michael Waltrip up front at Daytona. Imagine that. Want to own your own race team? Well, try it. Fantasy Cup has everything you need to be your own car owner. Look for the link at speedtv.com and join now. Let's check with Matt Yoakum in the garage.
And down in the 38 garage of Elliott Sadler, the team working under the hood. New crew chief Tommy Baldwin coming over the 38 team this year. Now, Elliott, how is your practice going so far?
Well, I tell you, the M&S4 is driving really good, Matt. We just can't really get it to suck up as good as we need to in the draft. So we're making a few changes to try to help it down the straightaway a little bit. But so far, so good. In the corners, we just keep working on a little bit.
And the team working on the car right now. The car is on the scales. One more question real quick. How's the communication going so far with Tommy Jr.? I mean, that's Long Island and South Boston.
Well, I think he had a few years of practice with Ward, so he can understand me. And he's definitely pretty lighthearted on the radio. He makes fun of me a little bit. I make fun of him. But so far, the communication's been great. I love his enthusiasm, and I love the fire he's got. And I think he's going to make me one heck of a race car driver.
Hoping for big things. Remember, Tommy Baldwin and Ward Burton, they won the 2002 Daytona 500.
Tommy Baldwin over to Yates Racing to work with Elliott Sadler this season. A couple of new crew chiefs, with Slugger Labby working with Dale Jarrett at Yates in the 88 car this year.
You see this group of cars running on the racetrack. We saw Michael Waltrip in this group of cars when he went to break. Well, I think Michael and those guys were checking to see how much fuel that the car would get out of the tank. And he ran out of fuel coming off turn 4 in front of all those cars.
Right. I was going to say, that was the big thing. You ran out in front of everybody, which you don't want to do.
Man, it was close.
Alan.
Hey, you guys were asking about Casey Kane. I just talked to Ray Evernham as they finished working on the car and sent Casey back out onto the racetrack. Ray says Casey describes the front end of their car, Wally, as darty. So they messed around with the toe-in settings a little bit on the front of the car and a couple other minor adjustments. Ray says the car has good speed and does that aerodynamic thing well, but just want to get it settled down a little more, Matt.
Alan, while we were away during commercial, Steve Letarte came on the radio and told his driver, Jeff Gordon, we are halfway through a fuel run. They continue right now in front of Tony Stewart's car, second in line. Now, he also said if the car is good, you know, we can go and stay out there and run for a little while longer, or if we need to work on it, bring it in. Jeff says, no, we'll stay here for a little while longer. One other comment from another driver, he said, it looks to me like Dale Earnhardt Jr. can go wherever he wants. That may be bad news for tomorrow night.
I'll tell you, that could be bad news for guys for about 10 days, Matt.
Absolutely, Bill. Speed Week's a long week with a lot of money up for grabs, not only tomorrow night on TNT, but the big show The Daytona 500, 48th annual on NBC.
And Earnhardt Jr. has made it clear that he expects to win a number of races this season and contend for the Nextel Cup Championship.
Almost guaranteed it, didn't he?
Pretty close to it. And you know that both Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jeff Gordon want to perform well in the Daytona 500 just to get their season off on the right foot.
Well, normally a bad year like that will get you and the team fired up. Or hopefully it will. And I think, you know, Jr. and Gordon did not want to run like they did last year. And they took it personal. And they're doing everything they can to make it different this year.
Didn't make the chase for the championship. Both on a mission to take the championship that was won by Tony Stewart a year ago. Tony in that 20 Home Depot ride.
Now then, Tony Stewart easily pulled out and passed Jeff Gordon. But you can pass the guys that are third, fourth, on back. Can he pass the leader? I'm interested to see.
And a lot of that is really hard to tell when they're passing here because guys are trying to find out where their cars are handling well and where they're not. So sometimes the leader will get out of the gas, drop back in the pack, and let the other guys go by so we can get behind some cars to see how his car handles in dirty air.
Well, that's what it looked like. And don't forget, I don't know how close the 24 is to running out of fuel.
Right.
But he wants to get to the back if they are going to do a fuel run and stay out.
That's Kevin Harvick in the 29 car, that Reese's ride. And you'll see that a lot in 2006 for Harvick. Final practice for the Budweiser Shootout at Daytona. Jimmy Johnson, the defending champ, in that 48 car in the middle of that pack. How you going to get ready for the Daytona 500? With the all-new NASCAR Race Day built by the Home Depot. Catch it Sunday, February 19th, live from Daytona, 11 a.m., right here on Speed. NASCAR Nextel Cup Series cars out on the track. Final practice for the Budweiser Shootout that comes up Saturday night. Down in the garage to Alan Bestwick.
Yeah, the huddle just broke up around the driver's side window. Dale Earnhardt Jr. still settled inside the car. One word to describe the way this car's running, Bill: good. Back to what I told you at the top of the show about this car. They're making some changes under the hood now, things they want to experiment with for the Daytona 500 next week. Some carburetor engine combinations. They're doing that now, and they're going to send him back out, try it a little bit. They also just topped the car off with fuel, and they may try a fuel mileage run here to see how much they can pick up out of the tank.
Thanks, Alan. Of course, with the smaller fuel cell here. You're watching what, Wally?
No, I was just... Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm just going to tell BP. I mean, 20 has done everything he can and try to pass Carl Edwards in 99, but it's just not working.
So far, nothing is working. This might work. He might quit. Go, Tony. Go, Tony. All right, he got him.
And it looks like Jeff Gordon might have run out of gas back there, too, because he was working on that fuel mileage thing as well. Matt?
Well, Bill, he did run out of gas. Basically, they are done at this juncture with practice. Steve Letarte, as Richard told him, just get a clean cut, meaning shut the engine off so they can get a good reading on the plugs when he comes back in, just to see how that engine is burning the fuel and air mixture.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Hey, AB, when are they going to bring that 9 car back in? Boy, Casey Kane looks, I mean, that car just looks like he's got his hands full. And it's bump sensitive. You can see when the car gets on a bump or hits a bump, the thing shoots one way or the other. You know, and there's a lot more to, I mean, tow is one thing, but there's things called bump steer and things like that you want those cars to not do that, especially in a racetrack like this. Like BP says, this is a handling racetrack. You need your car to drive good in a pack of cars like this.
We came down here once and worked really hard on that bump steer you're talking about to try to make the wheels go straight up and down in a bump. You couldn't drive the car.
Yeah.
When I'd hit those bumps, the wheels would go in or out, and I was all over the racetrack. We finally just threw all that stuff away, all that work away, went back to a standard package, and it was like driving a luxury car.
Yeah.
That bump down there between 1 and 2 looks more aggressive or more irritating, more pronounced than I remember.
Each year, when you have bumps on the racetrack, each year that nothing's done to the track, those bumps seem to get just a little bit better.
And actually, it's not really a bump like you think a bump.
Right.
It's a hole.
Right.
So you're going down into that hole, and then the car shoots up out of that hole and it launches a car. AB.
Well, I'm just curious. A lot of times when you're out there in these practice sessions, isn't it the driver's call when to bring that car in? Kind of, you know, when he's had enough or he doesn't think he feels he's run enough laps to learn what he can expect the car to do and what they might need to work on. Then he makes the call. He might be even practicing a little pit road entry there.
He's already flattened the right front tire. We talk about all the time about trying to make a pit stop and not lock up the tires. Casey Kane punctured the right front tire trying to stop getting on the pit road.
And in the Budweiser shootout, you will have to make a pit stop, more than likely under green, and that has been an issue in the past. Here comes Benny.
Watch, he hits the brakes, and the right front stops turning. The left front also.
For a long time.
And watch, the right front is already flat.
Yep.
It doesn't take any time to punch a hole in those tires.
He's got his hands full, Wally. It's Kyle Busch in the 5 car. That's Matt Kenseth in that 17 car. Different look for Kenseth.
And we talked about the small fuel tank we mentioned just a moment ago. They hold about 13 gallons. So a lot of times these guys would stop and change 2 tires. But if the driver locks up the left front coming in, that strategy goes out the window. You have to stop. You have to change 4 because you've got 4 flat tires or 2 front flat tires anyway.
Matt, what are you working on?
Well, Jimmy Johnson, he was right in front of the Dodge from the Aerodynamic stable that you saw lock up the right front tire, making his entrance in the pit road. Well, Jimmy Johnson was practicing his pit road entry, coming in to also get some tire temps, get the sheets so Chad Knaus can look that over. But Jimmy, very pleased with the progress that they have made during this final practice session. But he did say, like a lot of other drivers we've heard on the radios during this final practice, it's a lot easier up high. Down low, it seems to bog down a little bit.
Pretty much what Junior was saying yesterday, getting ready to come into the week's activities. Alan?
Just more on Casey Kane. While he was asking about that before, he talked about that they've improved the front end of the car. The dartiness is not as bad as it was, but now the back end is kind of getting a little wiggly on him. And he and his team director, Kenny Francis, debating how much of that might be track conditions. What historically happens here at Daytona as the tires wear, the fuel burns off, and the temperature cools for these night races. They're trying to decide how much farther to go on any kind of a chassis adjustment before they might overstep what the conditions will be tomorrow night.
Well, like you said earlier, though, that's a lot of the driver's call, AB, and he's got to be comfortable in that race car. It doesn't matter what they think about track conditions or anything like that. Casey's got to feel like he's got it under control, that he can drive that car. If not, they got to keep working on it.
No points in the Budweiser shootout, but a lot of cash and a lot of pride. And 70 laps to find out how good your restrictor plate program really is. In the Budweiser shootout, it's all about winning, just like Pink's. Lose the race, lose your ride. Pink's, February 22nd, 9 o'clock Eastern, right here on Speed.
I can't believe anybody would race their car for the title.
You never did that?
No. Man.
You got to have a lot of confidence there,
I
man.
tell you, you do.
I never had a title for a car, so.
Matt Kenseth, the 17 car, new look in 2006.
Look who they're all chasing.
Oh, yeah, that's real shot.
Okay, now our guys down in the garage are saying that Kevin Harvick might be trying out his pit road entry on this lap, but he's going to have an issue now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get down there.
Nope.
But it's hard. You know, you have to try to figure out how far you can run through 3 and 4 flat on the gas and be able to get off, get the car slowed down, downshift, make pit road without speeding or locking up your tires. And it takes some practice, especially when you've been out of the car for a little while. It's very, very difficult hitting pit lane from a restrictor plate racetrack. These cars do not slow down very well.
Well, they don't have very big brakes, right?
No, they don't. And so, okay, he's probably going to try it this time. And what you're trying to do, because you can lose or gain a lot of time by your entrance. And if you hit it just right, like BP talked about, if you want to come in for a 2-tire change, you've got to do it fast enough without locking up the tires. And boy, you could be 10 feet off and lock them up.
If you can gain 1 second on the entry, that's almost 100 yards on the racetrack. Just one lousy second. He can't make a stop now.
No, it's not going to be this time.
Looks like he might be trying to get free of that traffic to make sure it doesn't affect
traffic
anybody else.
Traffic is not a problem.
Okay.
Maybe Todd Berry wants to see if in that position he can catch back up to the back of cars. Todd Berry being the crew chief on the 29 car.
It's Jamie McMurray out front. Harvick now at the back of this pack. Denny Hamlin in the 11 car.
Looks like Harvick's coming in anytime soon.
I don't think so.
I tell you what, if that was what he was trying to do, see if he could catch the pack, he succeeded and rather well. It's Bill Elliott there in the 36 car in front of these guys. Alan.
Hey, Benny, when you were driving and you started a new season here at Daytona, you know, you had guys that you were more comfortable running with maybe than others. Did you ever get confused about who was in what car?
Yeah.
Dale Jr. just called in on his radio and asked his spotter for some help. He said, I didn't know that was Matt. I got to get used to that new color scheme.
There'll be a lot of that going on next 10 days. The 17 is Matt Kenseth. White car, the post on the hood. Normally carrying the DeWalt colors.
And a bright yellow car.
Yes.
This time.
You know, McMurray in that 26 car looks pretty strong.
He really does. Well, I've noticed that every time he's been out there, he's looked pretty doggone good.
See if Junior can get up to him and make a pass on him. There's a 29 finally. I don't know if, yeah, it looks like he practiced the
Yes,
stop.
he's going all the way past
Yeah.
the entrance to the garage and down pit road.
Can't find his pit.
Can't find his guys. You're right. Tell me again where you're at. So he'll head back out on the track. So Jamie McMurray up front in a new ride this season. Big challenge ahead for him in 2006, driving for Roush Racing.
Final practice for the Budweiser Shootout continues on speed. A little over 20 minutes left. Cars on the racetrack and cars back here in the garage, namely Jimmy Johnson. So how would you grade this practice session for this team so far?
I think it was good. What I saw out there is there was a lot of cars of equal speed. It seemed like the Roush cars, the 20, the 8, our Hendrick equipment, we're all very fast, but there really isn't a difference between the cars. And, we ran around and did our thing. And also it's hard to tell because everybody is on a different tire run and age on tires. So I feel good. We'll learn a lot tomorrow night. And, I'm really excited about our 500 car and to get that thing going.
And the car is covered up, but fans would just be amazed at the paint work that was done. 12 hours, everything on that car, the logos, the numbers, everything except for the taillights and headlights is paint.
Yeah, everybody at Hendrick Motorsports, including the body shop, put a lot of time and effort into these cars, and what would typically be a decal is now painted on. So we had one scary moment in the shootout practice just there, but that's behind us and good. We had something where DJ was kind of slowing up and had to take the apron. So I'm glad we got this car, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Now, your teammate's car, the flames and everything was painted last year. He went to victory lane. What's the big advantage to that?
We're just trying to do every little thing that we can. If you think about a decal, when it's laid on the fender, there's a little lip there. It's not much, but when we're splitting hairs and working as hard as we are, every little bit counts, and hopefully that's enough to get us the pole.
Hey,
Let's
Matt,
go. BP.
ask Jimmy how difficult it is to pass the leader.
Well, how difficult is it to pass the leader? You mentioned how difficult it is on different packs of cars.
I didn't see any lead passes take place, so I think it's pretty tough.
No, we haven't either.
And one thing I want to tell you about, now you may not know his name, but you definitely seen his artwork on the racetrack and in victory lane. Now, Bill Deese, longtime Hendrick Motorsports employee, then went to Evernham, helped out with the development of the Intrepid. He lost a long battle with cancer. He was a great guy, many, many friends in this garage area. Very sad this week over the passing of Bill Deese. I mean, he was a craftsman when it came to working on race car bodies. Alan?
Matt here with Denny Hamlin's team. Denny getting his first Nextel Cup Series restrictor plate racing experience in Saturday night's Budweiser Shootout. I just talked to his crew chief, Mike Ford. I talked with Denny last night at the draw party for determining the starting order. And Denny said what he's looking for in tonight's practice is to find friends. I asked his crew chief, Mike Ford, if he'd found any friends. He said, "You don't have any friends on the racetrack."
Hey, Alan.
That's when you're a rookie.
Look at that back bumper, that yellow stripe.
Oh, yeah, well, that's what I was kind of, I mean, Denny knows that he's going to have a hard time finding people be willing to draft with him tomorrow night, but he had a game plan for this practice that if he went out there and ran with some people, ran them cleanly, behaved himself in line, that maybe he could build some confidence in him within his competitors that, he might need tomorrow night and later on in the week.
AB.
Yes?
Takes more than a race.
You know that from experience, I gather.
He better buddy up to J.J. Yaley and David Stremme and Martin Truex, those other guys with yellow stripes on their back bumper.
But that's a heck of a race in itself in 2006. Yes.
It's funny, Jimmy, talking about, boy, that is splitting hairs with these guys going to that paint now. Because just that little bit, they think that, the decals on those cars, that little bit of a lip could be something. Probably isn't, but in their mind it is.
I talked to Chad Knaus about that today, about all that paint. I think there's one decal on the car. All of the other decals have been painted over, and it's all nice and smooth. And then I go down a couple of cars away, and a PR director's slapping decals on a race car. I said, wow.
So they're looking for aerodynamics, basically, is what they're working on there. And they go to the wind tunnel and look at the counts, the number of counts they get.
The drag. They're trying to reduce the drag.
Yep. Brian Vickers lost a motor in the earlier practice session in that 25 car. Out front, Dale Jarrett in the 88. Harvick in the 29. Just a handful of cars out on the track with about 15 minutes to go in final practice for the Budweiser Shootout. The first event of the 2006 NASCAR Nextel Cup season, a non-points race here Saturday night at Daytona. So the cars continue to make laps. We'll keep an eye on them. You're watching the NASCAR Nextel Cup Series on Speed. The clock ticking down in final practice for the Budweiser Shootout here at Daytona. 21 cars take the green flag here on Saturday night with Ken Schrader on the pole.
And you won't see this Saturday night.
They'll all be together.
Cars by themselves.
You can see the babbling countdown clock counting down to the Daytona 500. Let's check in with Matt Yoakum.
And a young man who had an impressive season in 2005, Carl Edwards. Now, what are you thinking about tomorrow night's Budweiser Shootout?
I think it's going to be a blast. I'm really honored to be part of this race, and it appears that everyone's just out there having a good time, man. I think it's going to be a really exciting race to watch.
A little more aggressive, you feel like, in practice because it's a non-points event?
I think so. I mean, I don't think everybody's using their 500 cars. I mean, we're not. So, Bob said, just have a good time. Don't get hurt, So we're going to have a good time with it. And the car led really well. Office Depot Fusion was leading, so that's all right.
Good at the back, good going up through the pack.
Yeah, it seemed okay. Dale Jr. let me go by there and we got the lead. I don't know if I could have passed him. So, but we get a couple pit stops. We get to work on it. Who knows?
And you did a very good job saying fusion for the first time.
Yeah, that's the first fusion on the air this so far. So that's good. What did I say last time?
Well, you didn't say anything last time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the new car.
Yeah, it is. It's the new Ford Fusion. It's awesome.
It's the first final practice of 2006, and you had your first Fusion moment.
Yeah, it's the first final Fusion practice. That's right.
And real quick, your conversation with the 2005 champ?
Well, they're having this
kind of a racing but non-racing related issue.
I asked him if he was going back out, and then I'm really trying to hitch a ride with them over to Orlando for they got some Snowbird RC car races going. I've never seen them, so I'm pretty pumped about seeing that one of these days.
Well, he does have an RC company, so he might be able to give you a deal.
I know. I'm trying to rub some parts out of him, get him to give me a deal.
Those guys love those remote control cars.
That's all about racing.
Jeff Gordon on the bumper of Dale Jarrett. There's Tony Stewart in 20.
Now that's something that we haven't seen in this practice session that we'll see in the race tomorrow night, is going up and slamming into that car in front of him.
Bump drafting. On board with Stewart.
Good shot. Was that Denny Hamlin, I think, on the outside? 11 cars just went by. Drafted Jeff Gordon.
But we're still waiting, Bill, for the word slam drafting to take place.
And Matt, talking to these guys yesterday during media day, there is a lot of concern about bump drafting here after what we saw last year and how aggressive some of these guys got with the bump draft move.
Bill, so much up for grabs, not only money-wise to get that big deposit slip on Monday after the Daytona 500, but look back to last year. After the third race of the year, 8 of the 10 guys in the chase stayed there. And they made the chase, so everyone knows you've got to have a great start. Look at the Roush guys last year. They had a great start, and, you know, they know every race is so important. AB?
Yeah, just Dale Earnhardt Jr. thought he was done with practice. They decided to make one more change. What they've done is they put a different set of front shocks on the car. Again, continuing to work on things for throughout the week, including the 500 next Sunday. As part of putting those shocks on the car, the teams want to check and make sure the front tires don't rub with that particular setup. So they took a can of red spray paint. They put a blotch on the shoulder of that right front tire. They'll look at it when it comes in and see if the fenders rubbed any of that paint away as to whether or not they've got the contact there between the tire and the sheet metal.
Junior, I'm sorry, go ahead, Benny.
See what kind of RPM he's shifting, about 7,000 RPMs. These restrictor plate engines, anytime on the unrestricted engines, they'll turn them about 9,000, 9,500. Here, about 7,000, 72, 7,300 is about all that they kind of RPM they'll turn.
There's 170 miles per hour down the backstretch. Normally you're 185, so once you get this thing wound up, which takes a lap, it'll be 15 mile per hour faster going into turn 3 this lap.
And he's waiting for a pack of 4 cars behind him to catch up.
And in just a second, you're going to see those cars go blowing by Junior on the inside.
If they do go by, and it might be the only time you see anybody go past Dale Earnhardt Jr. at Daytona. Alan?
Hey, Bill, one of the things that Junior's been wanting to do in this practice session is to drop to the back of a line of cars and then try and work his way back up through them. See how his car passes? He reported on the radio one of the problems with that is that people couldn't catch him for him to drop back through that line of cars.
Well, let's see what happens here. That's Gordon, Stewart.
Well, I'll tell you what, Junior on the outside with no help is going to be hard pressed to keep those 3 cars lined up on the inside behind him.
On board with Junior. He likes the high side of this racetrack.
No, you keep your momentum up there too right now. I mean, the way these cars are running, you got to keep as much momentum as possible. You're going to do that on the high side. You can't do that on the bottom. You run the bottom and you're going to bind the car up. You lose a little bit of that momentum.
Well, he's in line at the back of the pack. When we come back, we'll see if he's at the front of the pack. Less than 10 minutes to go. Final practice for the Budweiser Shootout at Daytona. Final practice continues for the Budweiser Shootout here at Daytona. You haven't missed much. Dale Earnhardt Jr. still at the back of the pack. Been working back there with Jeff Gordon. You can see the Valvoline countdown clock. The countdown to the Daytona 500. The 24 dropped to the back. Didn't he, Benny? I mean, prior to this, to run with Junior a little bit?
Yes, he dropped back to try to run with Junior, see what they could do linked up together. Junior was in front of Jeff Gordon, and he passed Casey Kane and then fell back again behind the other pack. I'm not sure exactly what he's trying to do.
And Dale Earnhardt Jr. will start 19th of the 21 cars in the Budweiser Shootout on Saturday night. To the garage, and here's Alan.
Kyle Busch just getting the required equipment for any driver being interviewed, which is his sponsor logoed hat. You were fastest in the first practice. How was this trip around?
It was 4th or 5th, but it's, you know, I was on a pretty big suck up, so the car's not all that great. I don't know what's wrong with it, but we just can't get her to go. Whenever we're behind an 8 car, but I think that's anybody. Whoever's behind an 8 car is going to go pretty fast, but that seemed to be the only time we had anything worth anybody. So we can make some changes to it. I hope so, but otherwise we'll just see what we can get out of tomorrow night.
You were about 2 miles an hour faster your best lap in this practice than it was the first one. Just weather conditions?
Yeah, probably. I guarantee you that. Cooling down and everybody getting more comfortable on the racetrack, of course, with the handling conditions and whatnot. So it's a lot easier to hold it down now than it was earlier when the track was hot and slick. So even when you do go just that 4 miles an hour faster or whatever, on old tires, it'll get a little bit scary for you.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Good luck tomorrow night. Matt?
AB, on the other side of the garage, I've caught up with Kevin Harvick. Now, earlier I saw the team under the car, welding, thrashing on this car. Have they made a lot of headway for you, Kevin?
I think so. Our Reese's with Caramel Chevrolet is pretty good now. Changed the gear, changed the carburetor, cut a bunch of stuff off underneath, and just made some spring adjustments, tape adjustments. Pretty much changed everything and went from pretty bad to a really feel like a pretty good car. So pretty happy with it. Just see what happens tomorrow night.
Have you had a good opportunity to gauge your car against someone else, or you think there may be one or two guys, the pre-race favorites?
I mean, our cars seemed pretty good with everybody right there. Before we couldn't even get out of the back of the pack, so we were able to drive up through there and do what we needed to do. But Hendrick cars are pretty fast, and just have to wait and see how it all shakes out.
Now, when you walked up, you said something about your uniform and the color. What'd you call yourself?
I look good, don't I?
The big orange blob?
Well, if you wore it, you'd be the big orange blob. I'm just orange. You'd be the blob.
Okay, you know what? I won't talk about your hair, but what he said was, I'll be right back, but I've got to get a hat because I need to cover up my hair. So.
Okay. It is starting early, isn't it, Wally? I think you dropped the green flag on that, my friend.
To be on the getting end and the receiving end.
Yes, sir. Back to the garage, Alan.
Hey, just a little visual to show you that these guys mean business even when they're practicing. Bump drafting, serious stuff. It's not just a gentle little tap. That's the back bumper on Kyle Busch's car, rearranged already in practice.
And you would think that the car that hit him would have some damage to his front, but that's not the case because they have the fronts so braced up now so they can do that and not damage the nose of their car. We talked about the speed. Kyle Busch in that first practice session that was the fastest lap at 190.3, and the fastest lap this session is almost 194, 3.5 miles per hour faster this session than last one.
Alan was talking about some of that bumper damage. Let's see if we can find out.
Tony Stewart nails him. And that's when Dale Jarrett backed off.
Right there. There's the shot.
That was very early in this practice session. Has less than 2 minutes remaining. Tomorrow night, 21 cars take the green flag, 70 laps in the Budweiser Shootout, with Ken Schrader and Jimmy Johnson on the front row. Followed by Tony Stewart, Joe Nemechek, Casey Kane, Elliott Sadler, Ryan Newman, Scott Riggs, Dale Jarrett, and Jeff Gordon, the top 10.
3.5 minutes left.
And Dale Earnhardt Jr. will start 19th.
That's wrong.
I'm not reading the clock. And Michael Waltrip will start 21st.
21st. Brian Vickers 20th.
Alan?
Hey, was it Wally just saying that's not right with Junior starting that far back?
No, I was talking about the clock.
Oh, okay.
Weber was not right.
My apologies. Well, I just, Dale Jr. started the race in 19th 2 years ago when he won it. Three years ago, that would be now with this race. So I don't think he's all that concerned about starting in the back. I think the way this practice has gone, that might be better for all of us.
I don't think he's concerned about anything the way this practice is going.
I agree.
Except maybe what time his dinner reservation is.
Well, you can probably get there pretty quick, right?
I think he's got a little bit of pull around this town. He can arrange it, yeah.
That's Schrader in the 21 car with Junior behind him.
Scott Riggs in the Valvoline car behind the 8. Elliott Sadler, the 38 behind Scott.
Be very interesting tomorrow night to see how good that 8 car is.
Yeah, you wonder how much he's just messing around really right now. How much time's left, Bill, in practice?
I'm deferring to your judgment on that.
2 minutes left in practice. Final practice for the Bud Shootout cars, and Earnhardt working over Schrader in a 21 car. He's got to be grinning ear to ear.
Yes.
I mean, when you have a car like this at this racetrack and you can pretty much mess with whoever you want to mess with, it is so much fun.
And that's what he's doing out there right now. He's just having some fun, getting some laps.
Reminds me so much of his father here.
That's right.
Back in the 90s.
That's right.
He would have a car that was so fast, he used to go out and play with everybody.
Yeah.
And he's just pulling away. Let's check in with Alan real quickly.
All right, down to the final minute of practice and the final minute of our show. 3-time Bud Shootout winner. How's your car, Dale Jarrett?
Well, we hit up on something there at the end. Slugger made some changes and kind of opposite of what we've been doing here on the test, and but I just couldn't get the car to pull up like we needed to and maneuver in traffic, and obviously you're going to have to do a lot of that. So we made a change there, and the car was a lot better. So I think I'm going to have a car I can have a lot of fun with tomorrow night.
Smiling like he's expecting fun.
Dale Jarrett will start 9th in the Budweiser Shootout tomorrow night. Here at Daytona, you'll see it on TNT. Ken Schrader and Jimmy Johnson on the front row. 21 cars for 70 laps. A 20-lap session, then a 50-lap session to decide the Budweiser Shootout tomorrow night. The first race of the 2006 NASCAR Nextel Cup season. For our entire Speed Channel crew, Bill Weber with Wally Dellenbach and Benny Parsons. Thanks for having us in for final practice from Daytona.